So, hello guys, and welcome back to another episode, the first one in a very long time. I'm awfully sorry, I've had a lot to do, got a new job, had to move and so on, so quite a lot of things have been going on. And a bit of stuff has also happened with Warcry. There was a video last week, I think it was, where they showed off a new box set, including the Canine Shadowstalkers and the new Signs of the Flame as well, which is going to be a new start collecting box for Warcry. And yeah, I want to talk about that a bit. This episode we're going to talk about the Canine Shadowstalkers in particular. We've now seen all of their models. They have 10 models. And I'm going to speculate about their possible rules, and that's both in unit stats and in abilities they could have. So let's go through them one by one, shall we? So the first unit type, I think, is going to be box standard Witch Elves. So we've seen, we can see three units that look very much like Witch Elves. They have black capes, but that's really all that differentiates them from the Daughter of Cain Witch Elves. Cool looking sculpts for sure, but yeah, still very recognizable as Witch Elves. And therefore I think they will actually have the same stat line as Daughters of Cain Witch Elves, coming in at 65 points, so pretty cheap point cost. Movement 5, toughness 3, 8 wounds, 1 inch range, 4 attacks, strength 3, and damage 1, and 4 on the crit. So that is actually a good stat line. I've said it in my Daughters of Cain video, I think. This is a pretty decent unit. 65 points is cheap, so if they go the same route as the normal Daughters of Cain, I think these guys will be quite good. I think they will have something a bit different in terms of abilities, but we're going to talk about that once we get to abilities. So basically for all of these units, even if I have taken stats from comparable units, I've given the entire warband. I think they will have all very unique skills, and we'll have a look at that soon. And we've got the Sisters of Slaughter. So again, I think it's quite clear that these are Sisters of Slaughter, especially the one with the whip and the punch dagger. She's quite close to the Daughters of Cain Sisters of Slaughter. There are obviously, again, more dark, more shadowy, but still very recognizable. I was wondering if the spear might be a different weapon type, but for now I'm gonna assume that these are just going to be two different looking sculpts for the same model, basically. Actually, looking at it now, this might just be one model, which you could model with two different weapons. Anyways, we'll talk about that later. Oh, sorry, I wanted to talk about the stat line. So I think the stat line for the whip, at least, is going to be the standard Sisters of Slaughter stat line with 75 points, movement 5, toughness 3, 8 wounds, a range of 2, 4 attacks, and strength 3, but 1/4 damage. So slightly higher damage output than the Witch Elves, who are 1/3 damage, and also the higher range as well. So I like these models a lot in the Daughters of Cain warband, and if they are comparable, I think they'll be very strong here as well. For our third unit type, we'll have the I've called him Mr. Mage, because that's clearly what he is. He has got a mage spark on his hand, and yeah, I think he's going to have 5 movement, toughen 3 as well. Probably 12 wounds, I think, because he's like a single character, not yeah. So he's going to have a bit more wounds than some of the others, but again, still pretty squishy. And I think he's going to have a range of probably 10 inches, maybe, and 2 attacks, strength 3, 3/6 damage. So rather typical for magic users are the high damage numbers, but low strength and low number of attacks. So very swingy, basically, in the damage. You have high potential, but on average, it's going to not be that great. However, I think he's going to have, he might have some very cool abilities. So we'll take a look at that as well later. Then we've got the Cloak and Spear guys. So at first I wasn't sure that that girl on the right actually had a spear, or she might have a sword or something. But looking at the trailer, there was actually a shot of her from the behind where you can clearly see that she does have a spear. So I think these two are going to be the exact same stat line. And I'm going to assume that they are going to cost 120 points each, so quite steep there. But for 5 movement 5, toughness 3, 10 wounds, 2-inch range because they have spears, 4 attacks each, strength 4, 2/4 damage. So high damage output, but pretty squishy. But they kind of make up for it having 2-inch range, so I think they should be fine. And if that stat line is close to the truth, I think they'll be very strong. Then we've got the Crossbow guy. So again, he's going to be a single model, so quote-unquote hero. So I think he's going to cost 140 points, have movement 5, toughness 3, and 15 wounds, I think. So I'd assume he's going to be like the second in command type of thing, with a range of 15 inches, because I can't see him having more than that. That's already quite far in Warcry. Although, like, looking at the crossbows, it looks like those are repeating crossbows because they are, like, they have the magazine on the bottom there. You can see it there. And also, I think he's just, yeah, he looks like he can shoot some people. So I think he's going to have a range of 15 and 6 attacks at strength 3 and dealing 1/4 damage. So I think he's going to have high crit damage and a lot of attacks. So that could make him quite good at ranged combat. And then the last, but certainly not least, model is going to be the Masked Man. He's definitely our leader in this warband. And I think he's going to come in at 175 points. Also movement 5, but toughness 4, I think. 20 wounds, probably. That's something most of the leaders share in the old Chaos Warband, the Chaos Warbands. So I think that's realistic for him as well. A range of 1, 5 attacks at strength 4, dealing 2/5 damage. So that seems most realistic for me. That would actually make him, again, relatively strong points-wise on his damage output, but not weaker defensive-wise, which is something I must admit is also kind of wishful thinking, but I think it fits the warband theme. They all look lightly armored, so I think the movement 5 is realistic, and higher damage output would be a lot more preferable than higher survivability. Anyways, let's have a look at abilities. And for this, I've come up with 6 unique abilities. Sorry, not all of them are completely unique, but 6 abilities that I think this warband will have, and I think if these or close to these get implemented, they would be quite a cool, unique warband. So the first one I'd call probably Strike from the Shadows, something all units could use in the warband. It would be a double ability, and it would double the crit damage for the next attack action a fighter takes. So, for example, a Witch Elf would have a crit of 6 instead of 3. And I've calculated that that's actually a lot better on one action than Onslaught is, and for some of the fighter types even better on 2 activations than Onslaught would be. So if you activate twice with Onslaught, it's still not quite as good as activating once with this ability, which in my opinion is nice because it makes it worth it over Onslaught most of the time. And it just seems like a fitting thing for these assassin type guys to really deal high amounts of crit damage. Anyways, the second ability would be the Thrown Dagger. I think the Witch Elves might have it, because if you look closely at the models, you can see that at least one of them is holding multiple knives in one hand, and I think one of them has throwing knives on her belt as well. So the Witch Elves might have throwing knives, which I think are probably just going to be like the Iron Golem's Bolus, so throwing 2 dice, each 4 up is 1 damage, and each 6 is going to deal damage equal to the value of the ability. That would give the warband some ranged options other than the crossbow guy, which I think would be nice, and yeah, I think it would also fit the theme quite well. Then we've got the Hook and Grab. So that's something I think the Sisters of Slaughter are going to have, or could have really, and it's basically a netting ability. So I would give them, for a double, a 3-inch net. They'd have to throw a dice, and on a 3-up, the opponent would not be able to move. So that's my guess on the Sisters of Slaughter. Then we've got Disappear in the Shadows. So that is the first unique one I came up with for the guys with the cloak and spear, because they look like they use that cloak to hide. So this is a triple ability, and if the fighter is within 3 inches of a terrain piece that is at least 1 inch high, you may remove this fighter and set them up anywhere within 3 inches of another piece of terrain that is at least 1 inch high. So basically, if your board is relatively full with terrain, you're going to have a lot of options to teleport these guys around, basically. I did not want to include like the scatter terrain that's just on the floor. That seems a bit ridiculous, doesn't fit the theme of casting shadows and hiding in the shadows, but all the other terrain is fine for this. Then we've got the Veil in Darkness, which is the ability I think the Masked Man, so the leader, would have. It would be a triple ability, and it would make it so that all you have to subtract 1 from the attack characteristics of enemy fighters that target any friendly fighter within 6 inches. So basically it gives a bubble of protection to your fighters, to all fighters within 6 inches, reducing the number of attacks enemies have against them. I think that would be quite strong. It would be something different, because so far most of those abilities go the other way around, increasing your damage. I think he could be, like, the shadow theme could be quite nice and like hiding your guys basically. And yeah, I think that would be pretty cool. And then the last one, I've called it Fearsome Hallucinations. So that's for the mage to use, and it's a quad ability. You may make a bonus attack, a bonus move action with all enemy fighters within 6 inches of this fighter. They must end their move further away from this fighter than they started. If the enemy fighters are in combat, make a disengage action instead. So I think this is something we've not seen in Warcry at all. It's basically you're taking control of the opponent fighters. You're not allowed to attack with them or anything of the sort, but you're allowed to move them away from your guys, which could give you a lot of control. It's basically free and disengage action, so if you're in a heavy melee, your guys don't really want that. Your warband is going to be too squishy to stay in combat with a lot of enemies. So I think this could be an awesome ability to push enemies away, make them move up again, waste an action on moving instead of attacking. I think this could be really, really cool. Yeah. Anyways, that's really all I have to say about it. Please do let me know what you think. Let me know your ideas and your speculations about the upcoming warbands. I'm probably going to do a video on the Signs of the Flame as well. Maybe coming up with some rules for them, we'll see. But until then, guys, stay safe and goodbye.